Tony, and we're live.
Hi, and welcome back to the VSI webinar series. Today, Tom Sears will be speaking to Sam Stapleton, Managing Director for Rocnation Sport. Before we start today's session, I'm going to hand you over to Tim Coates, who will explain how those of you who are on the Zoom platform can ask questions to Sam at the close of the interview. Tim?
Thanks, Tony. Guys, if you're on this and lucky enough to be part of the attendees for this, then there's a chat box at the bottom of the screen. If you hit that and then type your question in as we go along, and then what we'll do is we'll pick the top 2 or 3 out of them all. We're not going to have time for loads, but we'll pick the top 2 or 3 to ask Sam a little bit later on. And then we'll go back to Tom to wrap things up. So any challenges, type in the bottom there if you've got any questions, and we'll pick that up as we go. Okay, over to you, the amazing Mr. Sears.
Thanks very much, Tim. I haven't been called that for a while. Sam, welcome first of all. Great to have you on. I'm particularly keen to have a chat because having been a CEO of national governing bodies and professional clubs myself, I've worked a lot with agents over the years and know what a fantastic asset a strong relationship can be with an agent, but also how they can make life difficult in certain circumstances. So it'd be good to get your thoughts on a few things. First of all, just to kick off, can you just take us through your career path that led to where you are now as Managing Director of Rocnation Sports?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Hope everyone is safe and healthy and staying indoors, obviously. So yeah, a little bit about myself. So I was lucky enough at 6 wanted to do. This is what I've always wanted to do, and I was stubborn enough to make sure that I got there. So back then we had, this is 16, 17 years ago, we had a exam. So whilst I was at university, I applied for my FA exam, my agent's license, got that whilst I was at university, set up a sports management company whilst I was at university. And then when I came out of uni, I then went into a small company, a startup, and was there for 1 or 2 years. And then a bigger company ended up stealing one of my players. So an argument then resulted in me going to work for them. So I worked for them for about 6-7 months. So at that time, I'd seen how a small company, a startup had worked and how a big company had worked. And then I met my past business partner, and we started our own company. So we started our own football agency, and we built a niche out in Eastern Europe, bringing players over from there into the UK and across Europe, and did that for a very long time. Having then seen the industry change over the last sort of 15, 16 years, it's changed dramatically as to the agency industry, the football industry, and what players are looking for. I then came across the opportunity to join Rocnation Sports, which is a huge, huge company, and jumped at it to be able to offer my clients, my players, what I do on pitch, and to be able to supplement that with what we do off the pitch was an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. So yeah, that's been my path. This is all I've ever done. I've seen lots of changes, and I'm sure I'll see a lot more. But it's an exciting industry. Every day is different. It's not 9 to 5. It's very much 24/7. But it's fun, and a lot of people would love to work in football in the industry, and we're all going through our own problems at the moment, and our industry is exactly the same.
Sam, you must be one of the only people in the world that set up a sports agency business when you're still a student. Most students have got other things on their mind. Talk us about through those early days and how you got started, how you got a foothold.
Yeah, well, going back to the uni thing, it was something that, as I said, it was something I always wanted to do. It was something that I worked towards. There wasn't great education towards it, and there still isn't now, to be fair. And the fact that companies like VSI that have just started, not just started, have the sporting directors course and the CEO course, that sort of thing wasn't around, and it's still not around as such, especially with regards to the agency stuff. So I ended up doing sports management, and it was useless for what I wanted to do. So, I looked at other things. I had a professional cricket player. Well, at the time he was professional playing cricket whilst we were at uni. So I ended up taking him on board and did a few sort of commercial deals for him with his bat and sponsors and things like that. And it just dipping my toe in the industry and getting getting an idea of what it's like. You know, from then leaving uni, actually I got an offer for work experience in London. I was at university in Newcastle. I got an offer to go and work for a big company in London, athlete representation, but it was unpaid. I was starting my third year at uni, my last year, and I just decided that I've got to go. And actually, I went to speak to my careers advisor and said, look, I've been given this opportunity. I'm not really feeling this right now for what I want to do. And when they said, well, what do you want to be? And it was like, well, look, I'm going to be a football agent. They laughed. So I thought at that point, right, sod this, I'm off. I did my last year of uni remotely from London. I did my work experience at this company during the day and worked in a bar in the evening to try and pay for everything while I was down there. You know, those sort of things, it's a common story. You want, if you want to get to where you want to get to, you've got to make sacrifices and fight for what you want. So that was just that process. And listen, doing that from a very small company, looking after my mate in my house at uni, to working for a small company, to working for a bigger company, to then working for your own company, and now working for a huge company, the best company that I feel is out there right now. You know, it's a journey. We're all on that journey, and nearing 40, I feel like I'm finally where I need to be.
Excellent. In terms of personal and professional development from those early days, you mentioned that there hasn't really been any sort of formal courses or references or resources to use. What would you advise people to look for and how they can develop their careers? Within
the football industry, within football agency, or?
Yeah, within the agency business in general. Obviously, football is the highest profile, but now agencies are spreading their wings further and further, and most sports are represented.
Yeah, listen, you've got to take your own educational path, what feels right for you. But I still feel there's a long way to go within education in my industry, and my industry not just being football agency, but CEO of clubs, sporting directors, you know, even chairman. There, you soon find that you put clubs and you put these multi-million pound industries, you know, run by a lot of similar people, and there's not a lot of education out there. You know, it's a lot of. So for me, you know, I did actually start with the change in regulation with the football agency. I did actually start a football agency course, online course, to try and help education, trying to help agents. And when they changed the regulations in 2015, now all you need to do is pay the FA some money and you're an agent. But you don't know, you could, in theory, sit around a boardroom negotiating your client's contracts and know nothing about the industry, which is crazy, which is a hindrance to us as other agents and a hindrance to clubs as well and clients trying to get deals done. So yeah, I set something up that can just try and help that. But I hope now with some new regulations coming in, perhaps we'll look more closely at what we can do to try and better the industry. And, you know, us at Rocnation Sports, we're trying to be a leader. We're trying to drive forward. We're trying to be a better company and be the best company out there we can to represent our clients. And then maybe people will look at us and see, well, okay, that's how you need to do it. So yeah.
And what are the key qualities that you think you need, Sam, to succeed in the agency business?
Perseverance, patience, with a degree of aggressiveness, and just an understanding of the industry, and that comes through a lot of experience. You know, there's certain situations and negotiations that you have to feel your way through, and there's no set rule book, there's no set playbook. You've got to count on your experience in certain situations and do the best for your client. You know, we as a company and myself, we will fight tooth and nail for our client. You know, that's at the end of the day, that's your client. There's no other trying to appease the club or trying to work for the club or anything like that. No, you look after your client. If you annoy people along the way, then so be it. As long as you can look yourself in the mirror, and as long as I can say to my owners, we're defending our client, we're working for our client, then that's all you need to do from our point of view. So yeah, perseverance is a big one for me. It's such a difficult industry. It's such an overpopulated industry with regards to agents. So persevere, continue to do your own thing, what you feel is right, follow your own values, and then at the end of the day, you'll reach the top. And to think long term and work back. You know, there's too many people within our industry are too short term.
Interesting. Tell us a little bit about Rocnation Sports' strategy and vision for the European operation. Obviously, we were seeing them very dominant in the US sports, so Europe's a new venture. What areas are you looking at to really develop?
Yeah, Europe's a new venture in the fact that we opened our office in London in the middle of last year, but it's not a new venture in the fact that it's been in our pipeline for a long time. It's something that wanted to build up in the States first, and then to bring we wanted to really build from the ground up, take our time, research the market. And as I mentioned before, I think within this industry, you need to identify a niche. And I feel our niche is, that proper full 360 service, where you can guarantee full alignment across all your business verticals. So whether it be marketing, PR, on field, which is the most important, and commercial opportunities off field as well. As far as then post-career and philanthropy, charity, trying to give back, those are all important verticals that we work together and achieve our clients' objectives and goals that we sit down with them and identify. We want to support the growth of our clients, not just on the pitch, which is a lot of other agencies do, but to do that off the pitch, and those two complement each other very well. Rocnation Sports coming across, it wasn't a case about acquiring an agency. So it wasn't a case of a big American company coming over and acquiring an existing agency. We didn't really want to do that. We wanted to create our own identity. We were not looking just for a quick fix. So, our values that we have in the States are translated and come across to Europe and to London, and it's the same values. You don't necessarily always get that if you go out and make a purchase. So yeah, well, look, we're in this for the long term. As again, thinking about long-term strategies rather than short-term, and we felt building from ground up, keeping our own identity was the way that we wanted to do, and the strategy that we've taken. And what for us is I hate the words kind of like agency. We try and get away from the word agency. We like to call ourselves a full career management company. So we do everything under one roof. My speciality is doing deals. So being out there in market, looking after my client, fighting for my client, having my clients back, being out there and finding clubs if needed, or being out there and negotiating the best deal where he is, or at a different club. And then when that joins with what we do off the field, I think it's a world beater. And our strategy going forward, and our vision from my owner for our owners, it's always, we get told all the time, it's always about being the best, not the biggest. We're not interested in being 150 clients, or we're not interested in that. We want an exclusive small client list. We're not motivated by bottom line. Our owners, it's never a question of, right, how much money are we making this year? It's, right, how can we do the best for our clients? That's the question we get asked the most. It's not about bottom line here. So again, that's a bit of differentiation for us, is that we're not, look, you look after your client, right? You do your job properly, then that side of it will come, that side of it will follow. But that's not the main motivation. We want to remain as a boutique agency, have a player come to us and feel as though he's part of a family, and that he's talking to the top people within the company. He's not fobbed off to other agents. That he really feels that, my ideal I would want every client to feel like they're my only client, that they're our only client. And if you have this big client list, then I don't really feel you get that. Our approach is bespoke to each client. Each client, we're human. Each client has an individual objective. They're all different, and one size doesn't fit all. So that's what we try and look at.
Excellent. And in terms of your approach when you're looking at potential clients, how do you assess whether they're going to be a good fit for you, you're going to be a good fit for them, and what's your strategy in approaching them and securing them as a client?
So yeah, we work hard when we identify a player. There's a lot of other agencies out there that a player becomes available, you try and snap them up, because it's so competitive within the industry. A lot of the time, lots of players have agents, already, and when one becomes available, it's like a bit of a feeding frenzy. We don't do that. We work hard as a team. We're on weekly conference calls talking about prospective clients. I will look to watch a potential client, even before we've spoken to them, as much as possible, to make sure that box is ticked with regards to ability and how I feel he is on the pitch, whether he's a up and coming player who I feel is going to carry on and improve to a top level, or whether it's a top level player as it is, or whether it's a young academy player coming through. We have to make sure that we identify those players properly. Once we've been through that process, we've all agreed, whether it be a box tick for a football ability, whether it be a box tick for having a story, or following the same values that we have as Rocnation. Are they interested in giving back, philanthropy side? Are they family orientated? Are they good people? Do they have a history of causing problems? We want good people within our agency. So, for us, not just in football, we are looking at other sports as well, but it's about the individual. It's about that individual standing out. We have, at the moment, we've gone to rugby and eSports, and that's not a natural play into those areas. It was more about those individuals stood out to us at that time. So therefore we felt that they fitted into our family. We never have the choice, but if you had a choice to be able to bring people into your family, then you would make sure that they were good people, that they held similar values to yourself. And that's what we do. So as far as strategy going forward, it's fit our values, but also, good players. We're building the exclusive client list, and I don't want to fill that client list just with any players. I really want to be exclusive from my side on the pitch, and we're very exclusive about who we bring in off the pitch as well.
And in terms of what that relationship looks like on a day-to-day basis, and give us an idea of how that is on an ongoing basis, what the daily contact is, how many individuals you personally are looking after.
So as a team, I feel you have a lot of chat in the media. It's all about a super agent. A super agent does this, a super agent does that. But that's one person. And that one person predominantly is just doing your deal. And then more than likely they disappear. What we've built here is a super agency. So we've got a super company here that does everything all together under one roof. So day-to-day contact, my clients will hear from me, especially during what we're going through now. Communication and keeping in touch with our clients is so important right now. Not just our clients, but our clients' family and people important to them. What we do is then I will speak to them all the time about football matters or whatever, just trying to keep everything together. But then we have a marketing and PR department that will be in contact with them about marketing opportunities. There'll be social and digital who are in touch with them about certain things that can be done, especially at this time, trying to content and keep fans engaged. And then our commercial department as well. So our commercial department will be in touch with our players with regards to potential commercial opportunities. And our president, Michael Yormak, looks over everything, and he'll be in constant contact with our clients. So, as I said, every client is different. So we'll always sit down with the client and say, right, look, this is your team. What points of contact? Do you want to have 3 or 4 different people that contact you on different things? Or do you want to go through one person? Or do you want to go through 2 people? And that communication builds over a period of time organically. And as I say, every player is different. So you have to work out the best way of doing it. But we have everything under one roof. So when I'm in doing a deal, if it's a big deal, big player, big club, you have everyone sat at that table. So you have an opportunity to get a deal done within hours because you've got the commercial department sat at the table, you've got the marketing and PR department sat at the table, you've got the agent sat at the table. You can sit in a room for 3 hours and get a deal done. It's not a case of, oh, look, I need to talk to my IR lawyer or do this and do that. No, everyone's sat in the room getting that job done. So yeah, communication for us is really important to our clients. There's too many stories I hear. We're always talking to players, prospective players, and you do hear, I haven't heard from my agent for a couple of months. I'm like, how does that even happen? So you know, it gives us a niche. If just, you know, it's crazy within our market, just doing a job properly is a niche. So yeah.
You mentioned that, and obviously you'll always take your client's side of the things, but surely it must help if you can foster positive relationships with their employer, i.e. the club. How do you try and develop that relationship from first contact?
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to be trying to have the best relationships you can. I speak to clubs, you know, we're coming up to a transfer window, whenever that may be or whatever that looks like, but we're coming up to a transfer window and I need to be in contact with clubs all the time. You know, we have clients that are going to be reneging or going to be moving, or prospective clients. You know, I'm speaking to clubs all the time. So you have to have that right relationship with the club. But saying that, and clubs know that if I'm in there, if my team's in there and we're not getting what we want for our client, then we're going to fight for a client. We're always going to take the side of the client. But you know, you can do things in a respectful way, and we all negotiate. We all have arguments in life, but you can do things in a respectful way. That if you're really genuinely fighting for your client and you're trying to do the right thing, then that club may be annoyed at the time, may shout at you, may walk out, whatever it might be. I've had them all, but they'll always pick up the phone to you again, because actually they'll look at it and go, okay, I can see why he's doing that. He might have annoyed me, but I can see why he's doing it. He's protecting his client. And if you do things respectfully and you have that respect in the industry, then you always maintain those relationships.
And in terms of your clients, how do you manage the relationship if perhaps your client feels he isn't getting what he wants, or that relationship proves a bit difficult?
He isn't getting what he wants from us or from his club?
Well, either.
Well, from us, listen, we've never had it, but we may have it in the future. We just keep doing our job properly. We'll never have that situation. But if a player comes to us and says, look, I'm not happy with this, you know, that's great for me. You know, for us, we would encourage that communication. I don't want a player sitting at home going or speaking to the missus saying, oh, I'm really annoyed, I'm not happy with this, I'm not happy with that. I would encourage clients with, you know, to say, look, Sam, can I come in? You know, there's something I just need to talk about and talk to you. So yeah, please come in. If you're not happy, I want to try and rectify that. So yeah, if a client was to ever say to us, look, I've got an issue, great, tell us what it is and we'll do our utmost best to rectify it and learn from it. You know, if it's something that we need to then learn from going forward, then we will do. But if a client comes to us and he's not happy, then we'll do everything we can to rectify it. If a client comes to us who's not happy with something outside of us, then that's our job to rectify it. If they're not happy with something at the club or outside of the club, then we're there to do that. I'm in the background all the time. You know, I'm not front of house. You know, I'm in the background all the time, and I'll do everything for my players. So if they call me and say, look, I need you to do this for me, I don't want to do it myself, or I've got a problem with this. So yeah. The amount of times, you know, through negotiation that I'll say to a client, look, this is where we're at. This is what I've said. They're going to be annoyed. They're probably going to pull you after training and say that your agents are so-and-so. You know, just say you don't know anything about it. Just blame me. Just say, you know, oh, don't know anything about it. Just speak to Sam. You know, I'm there. I'm the fall guy. I'm there to protect them. So yeah, anything our clients say to you, and we've had some, you know, requests in the past from small to huge. We're always there to do the best for our clients. And it's not, you know, as I say, coming to the family, their family comes into our family too. So, you know, if a girlfriend or a missus or a mom, whoever it might be, phones and says, look, I need help with this, whether it be business related or just whatever it may be, you know, we do our utmost for them as well. And that goes back to the importance of being exclusive in that recruitment, is that we, you know, we're not just bringing one client in, we're bringing a whole family. So it's important for us to make sure that's a family that we want to work with long term as well.
Excellent. You touched on that Rocnation Sports are now involved in eSports. You're representing Sia Khaleesi as well. Tell us a bit about where you see eSports going in particular, how that platform might work for you, and other new markets that you might venture into.
Yeah, eSports it is already a huge market. But I think now that we're all sat indoors right now, and, you know, we are all moving and probably understanding more about eSports than we did before. instead of there being an F1 race, there's an eSports race. And there was something else I saw recently they were going to do. Yeah, the Grand National is now going to be not eSports, but virtual, whatever it might be. But I think people that perhaps hadn't come across eSports previously are now coming across it. And that includes brands as well. Advertising within eSports, or brands recognizing that that's now a good form of communicating with potential clients and markets. Then, for us as a company, as I said, we signed Musa, FIFA world champion, who's just a great kid and someone that we want to work with, and he's just very, very good at what he does. It wasn't a natural play into eSports, but we will continue to explore that market for sure. And Sia, you mentioned Sia there. Sia is just an incredible human being who is doing his utmost best for South Africa. And just to be able to work with someone like that is just incredible. He does so much, and it's so important to him to give back to his country. That's the sort of people we want to be involved in. It's not about, all right, we want to get into rugby. Who do we get into with rugby and stuff? That's not. It was the individual with Sia, and our owners, personally picked him out and said, we want him. And it wasn't because he could play rugby well. It was because of the message that he was spreading and his story. So things like that, for us are really important. Yes, we're going to predominantly focus always on football. If there's an individual that stands out to us, or a cause that stands out to us, then we'll be there. We'll be knocking on the door for sure.
Sam, obviously it'd be remiss of us not to touch on the current situation. Coronavirus has affected everything massively, sport as well, no different. What challenges is that presenting you as an agent, as a representative at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the lack of face-to-face meetings, a lot of what we do is based on relationships and trust. So for me personally, my side of the business, if we're signing players or signing prospects or speaking to clubs, I want to be in front of them. That's where the real relationship is. If I'm talking to a player and I want them to sign to trust us, to sign for a couple of years, that's face to face. And yeah, look, we're going to have to, we work around that. I'm still pushing forward. We're still doing good business, but you have to adapt to it. So for me, that's the biggest thing. But we're all missing social interaction, not just on business. That's the way that we're having to go through. But yeah, there's for us, there's clubs that are uncertain. So at the moment, it's going to be it's a very fluid situation. We've got Premier League meeting this afternoon, so we just have to continue to monitor that. And me as a business, as my side of the business, it's carry on as normal. I have to prepare for this transfer window as best I can, because I've heard different things. I've heard no transfer window. I've heard transfer window all the way through to January, just one long transfer window. We're going to have bigger squads. It's all, sadly, a lot of this is going to be money orientated. And if broadcasters are threatening to, cost 700, 800 clawback or whatever it might be, then that comes into play. I think Spain broadcasters, have all prepaid. So I don't know what that means. I know broadcasters in France have withheld payments. So yeah, club situation. I know, Newcastle and Spurs have furloughed all of their recruitment team, as well as other clubs furloughing non-playing staff. And the current climate will change strategies for the transfer window. Some clubs actually, ironically, some clubs will thrive in this situation, because their strategy as a club may be to go out and find loans and free transfers and real good value deals. And there may be more of them now with some clubs that are struggling. There may be more bargains out there. Some of the clubs with strategies of going out and spending multi millions on clients. Yes, values will probably drop. I read something where they feel that values may drop, for anything from 30% onwards. So I think, there is a market out there for clubs that if you've got good liquidity, you can go out and buy at a decent value and keep your strong players, and then potentially sell those players at a later window where values increase. But for me, it's the social impact of football. I think it's huge. Look, it's not the most important thing in the world, football, by any means. Look, there's so much more going on out there than us moaning about not watching football. But if somehow football could come back, I worry that maybe there's a sacrifice is made just to try and get football back on, whether it be behind closed doors, just because of the social impact. The whole country is going to be a lot happier when watching football. But having football back does bring probably a feeling of normality again, but you have to be so wary of that. So yeah, and that's on the club side. Player side, wage deferrals is the big thing at the moment. I thought it was a bit unfair of Matt Hancock to call out our Premier League players. There's a lot of millionaires in this country, and I'm sure they're all doing their bit, and footballers are doing their bit also. They're working in their community. Some of them are donating funds. A lot of them will be donating funds that don't shout about it. To come out and to say, look, all Premier League players should be like, I'll always be defensive of football players, but I just feel that was a bit unfair to call out them in particular. At the same token, I don't really agree with the PFA saying blanket don't do it. I think it's up to those clubs. Look, nothing gets done without an agreement from the players and clubs. A club can't simply just drop salary, because that'll be a nightmare. If a club did that to a client of mine, then we'd be looking to get them out of there ASAP for nothing. So clubs won't do that. There has to be an agreement between everyone, and that's going to be different at every club in different situations. And I think clubs will just get the captain or get the representative in and work out, right, look, what are we going to do with this? It's not, don't call out a whole industry, and equally don't say don't do it. So I think it's just between those clubs and players to come up with something. But I know players are donating and doing the best, and for our clients, we're always thinking of ways to try and help this situation. I know the uncertainty you mentioned is sort of out of contract players. I think we'll know again what's coming up soon, but I don't see that as a huge problem. Look, we just extend it for a few months, whatever it needs to be. But again, if I've already got a move in the can and my player's coming out of contracts, then you start to worry about, well, look, adding 2 or 3 months on could bring out, what if he gets injured in that time? So there are lots of things around it, but I don't think it needs to be as complicated. I think it's also going to identify issues within contracts. Every player's contract runs to the end of June, which is always being deemed as the end of the season. But maybe that wording needs to change to the end of the season, whenever that may be. None of our football contracts have force majeure in there, so is that now going to be introduced? So yeah, it's and that's the on-field. And I know from my team, the commercial world is uncertain. Brands, spending freezes and that kind of thing. You can't. There are actually businesses that are thriving within this current situation. So it's being sensitive to the market, being sensitive to these brands, being sensitive to employees being furloughed. For us as a business, we have to carry on. I have to do the best for my clients, and our commercial and marketing PR team do the best for our clients going forward. If there's not business to be done now, there's definitely table setting to be done. So let's make sure that when we are all allowed back and to get business done and drive that economy back up as quickly as possible. So yeah, it's horrible for all of us. For me, it's the uncertainty. It's just not knowing, not having a date to work towards, or just not knowing. But you have to drive forward as a business. You have to do the best you can. There are opportunities out there within the current situations that you have to find them and be sensitive along the way, but continue as best as you can.
Sam, final question from me before we hand over to Tim for some questions from the panel. Where do you think the major trends, changes will be in the sports sector, obviously post-coronavirus, once we will get back to some sense of normality? Where do you think the opportunities lie as an agent as well?
Yeah, I think we'll have probably more appreciation of sport. Like you struggle through the summer with football, but it's a small period of time. And now, I think the country are really missing football, sport generally. So yeah, I think there's going to be opportunities within that. I think if we stick within football, there's going to be dramatic timetable changes. Like I think we're going to have, if I'm a club now, if I'm a player now, I think we're going to be playing football for 3 years, because you've got the Euros, you've got the World Cup. Probably if we're trying to fit, we're going to have more fixtures within a smaller time to try and fit stuff in. So our newly introduced winter break will disappear. I think you're going to have players that are going to be asked to play for 3 years. Honestly, those top players, and that may then translate into bigger squads. So I think that's going to be interesting, is how we now fit these changes into next season. I touched on players' contracts. I think every lawyer now will be looking at how that changes going forward. And yeah, you mentioned eSports. I think eSports is just going to blow up. I think more people now will have an understanding of what it is, and that's in the representation way, and also in the branding way. But for us as an agency, what we can come out of this is that I hope our clients come out of this and say to our team, guys, you were with me all the way through that. There were people that, it's a fickle industry, football, and there are people that disappear when things get tough. But we want to make sure that when things are tough for our clients, that's when they need you. They don't need you when there's it's doing these huge deals and stuff. Yeah, that's great. That's what you're there for. But to be with your client, to stick up with your client, to listen, we're sending care packages out, we're dropping food around, we're constant communication. You've got to be with your clients during the bad times, and we're all going through that. So yeah, for us as a company, we're always looking at opportunities. But I just hope as we come out of this, our clients say to us, or just think to themselves, that they were there all the way through this.
Excellent. Great note to finish on, Sam. I'll hand over to Tim, who's hopefully got some more questions for you.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Sam, so Craig Honeyman said, Rocnation seemingly representing players commercially after paying for their commercial rights. The question is, do you think that it's ethical to purchase commercial rights for players?
So we don't pay for commercial rights. So we look after our clients. We take on their commercial rights in order to find opportunities for them. So probably a bit of misinformation there. That's not what we do. Clubs pay for commercial rights, whether it be through image rights agreements, but that's changing. But yeah, I don't think. Look, these players are brands, and we're part of that brand building process. These players are brands, and commercial opportunities, they come out of that. We've got to. It's a short career for our players, for any player, and if we can help build that brand and get to a point where they build organic and authentic commercial partnerships going forward, that can, some of them in some cases, be equity driven, that help them in post career, or maybe personal interests for them that help them in post career, or even setting up businesses themselves post career. For these players, they need to think about that, and we push them to think about that. But at the same time, it's our job to make as much revenue for them as possible. So yeah, that's the importance of the commercial space for us.
Okay, it's very good. It's very insightful and brutally honest as well. So maybe there's a bit of misinformation out there somewhere. This next one, you've just tapped into it a little bit. I've pushed over it. Nathan Thompson, he says, what does Rocnation do to help players and athletes transition from their current career to future roles? I know you just touched on it very briefly.
Yeah, it comes from our owners. A lot of the sports industry was born out of athletes being misrepresented, or not being advised properly on investments. We make sure that all through our players' careers that they always have an eye on the long term. Again, said the words long term. It's being prepared for that. So we work with them through their career. At the right time, we'll sit them down and go, look, what interests you? what businesses perhaps, or what charities, what are you interested in? What's big to you? And as we get to know our clients better and better through many years, we understand that and we help them. So we've helped our clients build businesses, invest in businesses, invest in other opportunities that post-career, we still work with them. We have what we call a legend section, where once a player stops playing, then we continue to work with them. And we look at opportunities, whether it be those business opportunities, whether it be investment opportunities, or whether it be going into coaching, or whether it be going into TV or commentary, whatever it might be. They stay within the Rocnation family. They just go in a different section. So we work hard, and it's a big thing from our owners is make sure our players are looked after post-career.
Sorry, just to tap onto the end of that, as a psychologist of background, the ethical question would be, what are you doing to help them mentally transition from this the effective sports bubble that they've lived in for a number of years and you've helped them with, and then they transition from their career or post-career? What are you doing? Is there a journey, a pathway that they go on, that you help them with that to make it successful?
Yeah, and of course, and you'll know, it's not just the football stopping. There's so much more to that. The mental side of it, of not being in the changing room anymore, not being around your mates every day, the uncertainty of not knowing what you're doing, which hopefully we take away, and we try and make that transition as easy as possible. And part of the ease of that transition is to continue working with people that you've worked with for many years. So just because you've retired as a footballer, we don't suddenly disappear. They have that continuation of us being there. But yeah, we have partners that we work with, and if we feel psychologically a player's struggling with anything, then we make sure that they're looked after. And a lot of our players is we introduce things like that whilst they're playing. There's more and more of our players now that are looking to and use psychologists to improve their game, but also to help their mentality moving forward when they stop. So yeah, it's something that we're aware of, and we just try and make that transition as easy as possible.
Okay, great answer. Final question is from Danny in the States. He wants to know about, do athletes in the States view agents differently to those athletes in Europe?
Yeah, I think I think athletes and clubs. So, from us, one of the values and one of the things that drive us coming over from the States is that athletes are treated so much differently by their clubs in the States than compared to here. Here, clubs, they see them as a name, a number on an asset sheet, and I think it's different in the States. In the States, they look after their athletes. They understand their athletes. They understand their athletes' wants and needs a lot better than in Europe. So we bring that over, and ruffled a few feathers in a few boardrooms, fighting for things that are new to clubs in this country, but have been done all the time in America. So yeah, it's a good question in the fact that there is a big difference. I think America is a lot more forward thinking in that respect, and we're doing our best now to, we're doing our best to educate the clubs in this country as to how we feel they should be treating their athletes, and it goes back to us always fighting for our athletes.
Do you think footballers in the States view agents differently to the ones in Europe, and particularly in the Premier League?
Different agents within the States, it's a different market. Everything's very black and white within their regulations. You get set a certain percentage, and it's very matter of fact in the States. There's not a lot of value add on negotiation in the States. So I think probably in the States, the athlete, whether it be football or whoever, there's an understanding that you have an agent, and it's not looked on as poorly as it is in Europe. The agency world has a bad reputation, and I know that FIFA are looking to make some upcoming proposals that we're not. The agency world is like any other business. There's good people and there's bad people. You can't worry yourself too much with what others are doing. you just have to concentrate on yourself, on your business, on your values, and do the best you can, and hope for success through that way. But yeah, I think America is ahead of us in understanding what representation really is. But, you know, we're doing our best here to bring some of those best practices from the States and athlete representation over to here to football.
Okay, fabulous. Sam, thank you so much. That's very insightful and very detailed as well. I was going to pass back over to Tom to wrap things up, and then he's going to pass you over to Tony, who's going to say goodbye, etc., etc. So, Tom, back over to you, my friend.
Thanks, Tim, and thanks, Sam. That was really interesting. I found some of your insights into how agents are looking to work and how things might develop in the future really interesting. Just one last question for you. What advice would you give to anybody looking in that would be considering a career as an agent or looking to get into that side of the industry? What would you advise them to do?
Don't do it. I don't need the competition. Listen, it's a great industry. As I said at the beginning of the conversation, it is a fantastic industry. What I would say is just be prepared, educate yourself, because this isn't, and you know what, talking about it right now, is this is a perfect time to do it. That we're all in a situation here which is incredibly bad, and we will all get through it. But this is a time where we can all self-educate or start something new. You know, we've got a client just ordered a piano. I know that's slightly excessive, but ordered a piano because he wants to start the piano. My missus has grabbed the guitar out the garage that's been there for 10 years. So, you know, we've all got time now to try and better ourselves in order for when we're back out there, whether you're a teammate or a leader or a boss, whatever it might be. I'm sure is when you look at yourself that you can improve on. So, you know, for me in the agency world, if you want to be an agent, then just educate yourself. And unfortunately, the way the industry is, you are going to have to educate yourself. There's not a lot out there for you to go and study for 2-3 years. It's not like that. You're going to have the proactiveness of going to do that. Now, it might sound all very boring, but if you want to represent your client as best you can, then you need to know, you need to have the knowledge. You need to be knowledgeable about the market, about contracts, about the legal side. You know, you need to really have a deep understanding of the industry. So look, great industry to get into. It's hard work. It's not your 9 to 5. There's no set hours in this industry at all. And the phone's always on because it can ring at any time, especially when you've got players all around the world. So yeah, be ready for it, and just educate yourself. Just don't think just because the actual registration process is easy that the business is easy, because if you don't educate yourself, you're not doing yourself justice, and you're not representing the player the best you can.
Sam, brilliant. Thanks very much for your time. Really enjoyed it. All the best for the coming weeks and months, and I'll hand back to Tony.
Thank you.
Sam, thanks for your time. A great insight into one of the world's leading companies working with athletes around the globe. Looking forward to catching up face to face for a bit of lunch and a pint once we get these bad times out of the way. But really appreciate your time today. With regards to next week, the VSI webinar series continues with David Allen, who is a former executive for UFC, Ultimate Fighting Challenge over in America, Nike and Adidas. And for everyone who's online listening to the webinar today, if you follow VSI on VSI Exec Education on Twitter, you'll be able to keep up with the schedule over the upcoming weeks. Until next week, thanks for your time, guys. See you again.
Cheers, Tony.